Do you know you just made my heart skip a beat? Rose's voice cut through the afternoon stillness like a drop of honey into hot tone, expected, warm, and lingering. Marcus Carter blinked, the roller brush still in his hand mid-stroke against the garage wall. A sliver of summer sun slipped through the half-open garage door, catching the beads of sweat on his forehead. He turned slowly to find Rose leaning against the frame, arms crossed, eyes unwavering. Her sundress was flecked with paint from helping earlier, and there was a lightness in her voice that made it hard to tell if she was teasing or testing. Marcus cleared his throat. "Ma'am, I'm just trying to get this wall even." It wasn't the first time someone complimented him on a job site, but this didn't feel like the usual polite small talk. It felt deliberate, honest. He dabbed at his forehead with the rag in his back pocket and refocused on the trim line. The garage was mostly cleared out. Rose had said she was turning it into a studio, but there were still remnants of another life. A broken rocking chair, a stack of boxes labeled Eli's baby stuff, and a dusty upright piano missing its middle C. "Iced tea?" she offered after a beat, stepping back into the doorway. "It's the South. I'd feel guilty not offering." Marcus hesitated, glanced at his watch, then gave a single nod. Just for a minute. The tea was cold, sweet, but not syrupy, with a wedge of lemon floating like a lazy boat on top. They sat on the back porch, Her 8-year-old son curled up on a patio bench drawing robots with sidewalk chalk. The heat pressed against them like an old wool blanket, but the porch fan hummed above their heads, offering just enough breeze to keep them rooted. Rose spoke first. "You always work this quiet?" Marcus nodded. "Noise makes mistakes." She chuckled softly. "My ex used to fill every room with sound. TVs, music, talking, anything but silence. Drove me crazy." He didn't respond, just sipped. He'd been in enough homes, heard enough broken stories while fixing baseboards or rewiring panels. Some folks wore their damage like perfume, others like a quiet bruise. Rose didn't seem like she was bleeding, but there was something unfinished in the way she carried herself, like a painting waiting for its last color. After a moment, she turned slightly toward him. "Eli's been asking if you're coming back tomorrow. He wants to show you his drawing of a transformer made out of tools." Marcus allowed a smile to creep in. "I like kids who think in parts and pieces. I like people who listen when kids talk." Another silence settled between them, not awkward, but thick, unspoken. The kind that stretches across differences without trying to erase them. When the tea was done, Marcus stood. "Thanks for the drink. Thanks for the help," she replied. But something in her tone felt like it was about more than just the paint. As he walked back to the garage, Eli bounded up beside him, holding out a rough sketch. "Mr. Marcus, this is you as a robot. You have drill arms." Marcus took the paper, examining it like it was a blueprint. "Strong design," he said, "but I'd need extra batteries." Eli grinned. "You can have mine." Rose laughed from the porch. "That's the highest honor in this household. Don't take it lightly." Marcus tucked the drawing carefully into his toolbox. As he packed up for the day, the garage light flickered, then steadied. He tightened the last screw and wiped down the outlet cover. "You ever think about painting a mural on this wall?" he asked casually. Rose tilted her head. "Why?" "Feels like this space is waiting for a story," he said, then paused. "Not mine, yours." That evening, back in his modest apartment above a barber shop, Marcus placed Eli's robot sketch on the fridge next to overdue bills and a magnet from a church fish fry. He sat on the couch, the hum of traffic outside his window, and let the quiet settle back over him like an old friend. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "This is Rose, in case you ever need more tea," or silence. He didn't respond right away, just stared at the screen, then out the window. Somewhere out there, a garage was half-painted, a child was drawing, and a woman was seeing him not as a worker but as a man. And Marcus Carter, who had spent a lifetime blending into the edges of people's homes and lives, felt just for a moment like he'd been seen. Marcus didn't reply to Rose's message that night. He read it twice, once quickly and again, more slowly, as if the meaning might shift with more attention. Then he set the phone down on the armrest of the couch and stared at the ceiling until sleep came in pieces. By morning, the message was still there, unchanged, waiting, like a quiet offer not yet rescinded. Work helped him forget, sort of. He threw himself into a rewiring project for an old duplex on the east side of Charlotte, arms deep in tangled wires and dusty breaker boxes. But somewhere between tightening the last panel and wiping sweat off his brow, he thought about that garage again, about the tea, the porch fan, and the strange, quiet way Rose had looked at him like she was listening to something unspoken. 2 days passed. On the third morning, Marcus found himself outside the hardware store picking up paint supplies for a different job when he noticed a small pair of green sneakers dangling from a shopping cart ahead of him. Eli. Rose turned around at the same moment, a carton of light bulbs in one hand, surprise written across her face but no hesitation in her voice. Marcus. He nodded once, casual but polite. Ma'am. Eli popped his head around the cart. Mr. Marcus, look, my robot got a new arm. He held up a folded paper with marker scribbles. Now it shoots juice boxes. Marcus laughed, genuine and unforced. That's advanced tech. Rose smiled, not the kind of smile that demanded anything, just acknowledgement. We were just grabbing a few things. The garage still needs light bulbs. He hesitated, then asked, You want help with that? I wouldn't say no. So he followed them back to her place, riding behind in his truck. It wasn't a job this time, not officially, no invoice, no clock running. The garage door opened to a familiar scent of primer and warm wood. It felt different now, less like a workspace, more like something in transition. Marcus installed the new bulbs in silence, only breaking it once to ask about Eli's favorite cartoons, which the boy answered with dramatic sound effects. When it was done, Rose stood in the doorway again, just like last time. Tea? She asked. Marcus didn't check his watch this time. Sure. On the porch, they sat a little closer, though still careful. Rose handed him the glass, and for a moment, neither said a word. The fan hummed above them again, the same lazy rhythm. She finally spoke. You didn't write back. No, he said, sipping. Wasn't sure I had the words. But you're here. I'm here. She nodded slowly. Eli keeps asking if you'll come back tomorrow. Marcus looked out over the yard, where the grass had started to brown in the heat. I don't want to confuse him. What about me? She asked, not accusing, not desperate, just present. Marcus met her eyes. You don't look like someone who gets confused easy. That doesn't mean I never do. They didn't talk for a while after that. Instead, they sat, sipping tea, letting the quiet carry the weight their words couldn't yet handle. Before leaving, Marcus crouched beside Eli, who was carefully stacking pebbles along the porch railing. I think your robot needs wings, Marcus said, sketching something quickly on the edge of a grocery receipt. Eli's eyes widened. It can fly now? With backup batteries, Marcus said. Everything needs backup. He handed the sketch to the boy and stood. Rose met him at the steps. You coming back? She asked. He nodded. Yeah, I think so. The next few visits were casual. A light fixture here, a coat rack there. Rose always found something that needed fixing, and Marcus never asked for payment. Their conversation stayed in safe waters: Eli's school, favorite meals, a shared dislike for cold pizza. But beneath the surface, something stirred. Familiarity, maybe. Or something quieter, more dangerous, comfort. Then one Saturday afternoon, while Marcus was patching a crack above the garage window, Rose brought out lemonade instead of tea. Thought we'd try something new, she said. He took the glass, drank, and raised an eyebrow. Needs more sugar. She grinned. I'm working on it. It's all right, he said. Not everything has to be sweet. Later, as the sun dipped low and Marcus packed up, Eli came barreling out of the house holding a paper crown made of construction paper. Mom said you're the garage king now, he shouted, plopping it onto Marcus's head. Marcus laughed. King of dust and nails. Rose watched from the doorway, arms folded, amusement in her eyes. Marcus took the crown off, set it gently on a nearby shelf. I'm not big on thrones. You're good at building them, though, Rose replied. That night, Marcus sat on the edge of his bed, phone in hand, staring at Rose's number. He typed and erased 3 messages before finally settling on one. Garage lights look good. Eli's robot is getting ambitious. He hit send. A minute passed. Then his phone buzzed. He gets that from you. See you tomorrow? He typed back. Yeah, I'll bring real sugar. She replied with a thumbs up emoji and the words, progress. Hi. Outside, the city hummed softly in the dark. and Marcus leaned back, arms folded behind his head. Something about this felt possible. Not easy, not simple, but real. And for a man who'd built his life around staying grounded, Rose Miller felt like the first thing that made him consider lifting his feet. If you're already feeling something stirring in your heart, this is just the beginning. Tap like if you believe in second chances, and subscribe so you won't miss what happens next. And let us know in the comments where you're tuning in from. Someone nearby might be listening to this story with you right now. By the end of the week, Marcus had become a quiet fixture around Rose's house, not in the way that called attention, but in the way that becomes expected, like the sound of the porch fan or the way the screen door clicked twice when it shut. He came by late afternoons, usually after finishing a paid job across town, and always under the guise of fixing something else, another loose hinge, another squeaky drawer, but they both knew the tools were just excuses. One evening, he brought a gallon of sky blue paint and 2 brushes. "For the garage," he said simply. Rose blinked. "I didn't ask for this." "Didn't charge you either," he replied, setting it down near the half-finished shelf he'd built last week. "You want it or not? Only if I get to help. Then it's a deal." They painted in slow silence. The garage wasn't just brighter, it was beginning to change shape, to feel less like a workspace and more like an idea in motion. Eli stood nearby with a smaller brush, happily painting smiley faces on a spare piece of plywood. Marcus had leaned against the wall. "It's a robot's control panel," Eli declared. Marcus grinned. "Better give it a reset button." Rose glanced at him sideways, her voice soft. "You think people have one of those?" Marcus shrugged. "If they do, I haven't found mine." Later, as they cleaned up, Rose sat on the garage step and peeled the tape from her hands. "Do you ever feel like life rerouted you without asking first?" "Yeah," Marcus said. "About 12 years ago." "What happened?" He wiped blue from his knuckles, paused. "My dad left when I was 10. My mom raised me on one salary and prayer. I learned early that plans don't care about your feelings. That's honest. It's also the truth." She leaned back on her palms, looking at the ceiling. "I thought I'd be in New York by now. Gallery shows, studio views of the Hudson. Then I met Eli's dad." Marcus didn't ask the obvious question. He just listened. "He was smart, funny, wore cologne I could smell 2 rooms away," she continued. "But he couldn't stand silence. Couldn't handle real." Marcus looked down at his hands. "Silence isn't easy. Most people run from it. But you live in it." "No," he said. "I work in it. There's a difference." The conversation drifted into dusk. Eli had gone inside. Marcus stood and collected the brushes. "You sure you're not tired of fixing my life one nail at a time?" she asked with a teasing smile. "I'm just patching holes," he replied. "You're the one deciding to stay." The next day brought rain. Not a drizzle, but one of those southern summer downpours that made the streets steam and the windows weep. Marcus had no jobs scheduled. Most people canceled when the weather got mean. Around noon, his phone buzzed. "We're baking. Eli wants you to be the taste tester." He didn't answer right away, but by 2:30 he was standing on her porch, umbrella folded and shoes damp. The house smelled like vanilla and flour, and when Rose opened the door, she was wearing a flour-dusted apron that read, "Mabe Swearing will help." Marcus smirked. "That's honest branding. Compliments of my sister. She thinks I need more help than baking provides." Inside, Eli was rolling cookie dough into uneven balls and sneaking chocolate chips like they were state secrets. Marcus took a seat at the kitchen island, watching them move like a practiced pair, Rose with her quiet directions, Eli with his boundless chaos. It looked, for a fleeting second, like something he could belong to. "What do you think?" Rose asked, holding up a tray of dough. "About the cookies?" "About this." Her voice was low, almost drowned out by the storm outside. Marcus met her gaze. "Feels dangerous." "Why?" "Because it feels real." She nodded slowly, slid the tray into the oven. "I think you're used to waiting for the other shoe to drop." "It usually does," he said. She came to stand across from him, hands still dusted in flour. "I'm not trying to rescue you, Marcus. I know. And I don't need you to rescue me either. I know that too." They stood there in the hum of the kitchen, the oven ticking, the wind tapping at the window like it wanted in on the conversation. Then Eli broke the silence. "Mr. Marcus, do robots get scared?" Marcus turned. "Sometimes. But they don't cry, right?" Marcus leaned forward. Not on the outside. Me neither, Eli said matter-of-factly, then returned to drawing laser beams on his napkin. Rose smiled softly. He's a good kid. He's yours, Marcus replied. That counts for a lot. The cookies burned a little on the bottom, but Marcus said nothing. He ate 3. When he finally stood to leave, Rose walked him to the door. The rain had lightened, but the sky was still gray. You're welcome here, she said quietly, even when nothing's broken. Marcus paused, umbrella half open. That's the scariest part. Why? Because I don't know what to do with things that aren't broken. She reached for his hand, not to hold it, just to place something in it. A single cookie wrapped in paper towel. Start here, she said. He looked at her hand, then her eyes, then nodded. I'll try. As he walked down the steps, the rain picked up again. He didn't run, just tucked the cookie into his pocket and walked steady, like a man unsure of where he was headed but certain he wasn't turning back. Saturday morning came with a breeze that hinted fall was inching closer. Marcus stood in front of his bathroom mirror, adjusting the collar of a shirt he hadn't worn in years buttoned down, light blue, the kind folks wear when they're not working with their hands. The kind he used to see other men wear at job interviews or weddings. He wasn't sure why he chose it that day. Maybe it was the way Rose had said, "You're welcome even when nothing's broken." Maybe it was the way Eli looked up to him like he was more than just a guy with tools. Maybe, and he wouldn't say it out loud, it was because this was felt like it deserved more than old jeans and work boots. When he pulled up to Rose's house, she was already outside with Eli, setting up a folding table and taping a sign that read, "Free art, come paint with us," in big, colorful letters. Eli spotted him first and waved so hard his marker flew out of his hand. Rose turned, her sundress catching the wind, and her smile widened when she saw Marcus step out of his truck. "Nice shirt," she called. "Big day?" "Thought I'd try something different," he said, adjusting the cuffs. "You two throwing a block party without warning?" "Sort of. We're just inviting neighbors to paint the new wall in the garage. It's open canvas day." "Whose idea?" "Eli's," Rose said proudly. "He said the garage shouldn't just be ours. It should belong to anyone with something to say in color." Marcus helped carry out more supplies: brushes, paper plates smeared with paint, old shirts to use as smocks. As the morning stretched into early afternoon, people from the neighborhood wandered by. An older couple brought lemonade. A teenager added a phoenix mural to one corner of the wall. A young girl painted a giant pink heart above the light switch. There was music playing low from a Bluetooth speaker, the kind of gentle acoustic tunes that didn't interrupt conversation but wrapped around it. Marcus mostly stayed back, refilling water cups, fixing wobbly stools, letting others take the space. He wasn't used to being in the center of anything, but when Eli pulled him toward the wall and handed him a brush, he didn't resist. "Paint something," the boy said. "Doesn't matter what." Marcus stood for a long moment, brush in hand, before slowly adding a patch of deep green in the shape of a trino, perfect, not symmetrical, but grounded. "What's it mean?" Eli asked. "Roots," Marcus said simply. The boy nodded like that, made perfect sense, and went back to adding flames to his robot. Rose came up beside Marcus as he wiped his hands. "You okay?" "Yeah, just taking it in." She glanced around the garage, turned, gallery, the walls now covered in stories, ideas, dreams in color. "He needed this," she said. "Eli?" "Both of you," she replied softly. Later, after most folks had left and the brushes were soaking in buckets of cloudy water, Rose poured 2 glasses of iced tea and handed one to Marcus. "You ever think we're building something bigger than we planned?" she asked. "Every time I pick up a hammer," he replied. She smiled. "You say that like it's a warning, more like a promise." They sipped in silence for a while, the fan above creaking rhythmically. "You remember that day we met?" she asked suddenly. "You mean the day you called me handsome with a paint roller in my hand?" She laughed. "I do have a flair for timing." "And understatement," he added, and they both chuckled. Then her voice shifted, quieted. "I didn't say that just to be funny. I meant it. And not just about how you look." Marcus glanced down at his tea, swirling the ice. "I figured." "You did? Maybe not then. But I know what it feels like to be seen for more than what I carry in a toolbox." "And?" she asked. "And it's terrifying." Rose reached out, placed her hand lightly over his. "Me too. This's, whatever it is, Scares me in a good way. I don't want to break anything, he said, barely above a whisper. You're not a wrecking ball, Marcus. No, he said, but I've built enough to know what happens when you don't measure twice. The sun dipped behind the trees as they sat there, neither rushing to name what was forming between them. It didn't need a label yet, it just needed space, and trust, and time. As Marcus left that evening, Rose walked him to the truck. Eli, now inside, waved from the window with paint still smudged across his forehead. Marcus turned to Rose, hand on the door. You're not going to run, are you? Only if you're chasing, she said. He gave a quiet laugh, shook his head. Not much of a runner. Then we'll walk, she replied. One step at a time. That night, Marcus didn't just feel seen, he felt invited, not to fix, not to save, just to be, and for the first time in a long while, that was more than enough. The weeks that followed the garage painting felt like something out of a quiet dream Marcus never dared to have. He and Rose fell into a rhythm unscripted, easy, unspoken. Some afternoons he'd show up with a new tool or a six-pack of soda for Eli. Other days she'd text him a simple, "We're out back," and he'd find them tangled in sidewalk, chalk, or knee, deep in a homemade obstacle course. There was never a conversation that defined what they were. They didn't need one. Not yet. The closeness was in the small things, the way she always made a second cup without asking, the way he remembered her preference for lemon slices instead of wedges, the way Eli looked at him with a kind of trust Marcus hadn't earned but cherished all the same. Then came the Thursday morning phone call. Marcus was replacing a faucet in a rental unit when his phone buzzed. Rose. He wiped his hands and answered. Her voice was tight, strained. I need a favor. Now. No details. Just an address. A school. He didn't ask questions. Just packed his tools, got in the truck, and drove. When he arrived at the elementary school, he spotted her immediately. Rose was sitting on a bench near the front office, hands clenched around a tissue, her face pale. Eli sat beside her, quiet, staring down at his sneakers. Marcus approached slowly. What happened? Rose stood, smoothing her skirt with shaking hands. He got into a fight. Eli? Marcus looked at the boy. You okay? Eli nodded but didn't speak. Inside, the assistant principal explained the rest. Another student had called Eli named Sugli, mean ones, words about his skin. His dad said he didn't belong here. Eli had shoved the boy hard enough to make him fall and split his lip. We don't condone violence, the administrator said, stern but not cruel. But we also don't ignore provocation. Eli will be suspended for 2 days. We're contacting the other family too. Outside, Rose exhaled like she'd been holding her breath since sunrise. I should have been there, she whispered. I should have... Hey, Marcus interrupted gently. You're here now. Back at the house, Eli curled up on the couch with his robot sketchbook, silent. Rose stood in the kitchen, arms wrapped tightly around herself. He's never done anything like that, she said. Not once. Marcus nodded. Because he's been safe. Today he wasn't. She turned to face him. Do you know what that feels like? Knowing you can't shield your kid from something ugly, no matter how much you love them. Marcus didn't answer right away. Then he walked over, leaned against the counter beside her. I grew up hearing words like that. I learned to pretend they didn't hurt. That doesn't mean they didn't. Rose looked at him, eyes searching. And what did you wish someone had done? Stayed, he said simply. Not tried to fix it, not explained it away. Just stayed. She reached for his hand, and he let her take it. Then stay, she whispered, and he did. The next 2 days were quiet but tender. Marcus didn't leave after sunset like usual. He stayed for dinner, helped with dishes, and once, after Eli had gone to bed, they sat in the living room, the sound of rain pattering against the windows. I know this isn't a fairy tale, Rose said softly, staring into her tea. But sometimes I let myself pretend. Fairy tales don't have room for people like me, Marcus replied, his voice almost a murmur. Not true, she said. The old ones? Maybe. But the real ones, the ones we write ourselves, those have all kinds of heroes. He glanced at her then, and for the first time he didn't look away. Her eyes didn't ask for anything. They just offered space, and he stepped into it. That night, as he was leaving, Eli came padding down the hall, rubbing sleep from his eyes. Mr. Marcus? Marcus crouched to meet him. Yeah, buddy? Eli looked up. If I get in trouble again, will you come get me? Marcus smiled, reached out and ruffled the boy's curls. Every time. The next morning brought an email from a local parent blog. One of the neighborhood moms had shared a photo from the garage paint day. It had gone semi-viral in their community. The comments were mixed. Some praised the inclusive spirit, the creativity. Others made subtle jabs. Looks like a project for single moms and their handymen, one wrote. Another chimed in. I guess this is what schools call diversity now. Rose read the comments before Marcus could. She didn't show him, but he knew. The shift in her shoulders, the way she turned the screen away just a second too late. He asked her directly. You okay? She hesitated, then nodded. People talk, doesn't mean they know. He studied her face. But they can still hurt. I've lived through worse, she said. I can live through this. You shouldn't have to. Neither should you. Silence settled between them like a third person in the room. Do you want to stop? He asked finally. Whatever this is. She looked at him for a long moment, then shook her head. Number I want to keep building, even if it gets messy. Marcus leaned back in his chair. Then we'll need stronger walls. We already have something better, she said. We have roots. And in that moment, with nothing more than paint, streaked hands, and shared words, Marcus realized what Rose had already known. They weren't just painting over old walls anymore. They were laying down foundation. And the story they were writing quiet, tender, hard-won was theirs to protect. The following week unfolded like a stretch of calm water, deceptively still on the surface. Eli returned to school with a backpack full of fresh notebooks and a confidence quietly rebuilt by the two people who had stayed beside him when it mattered most. Rose packed his lunch with a small note, each day, nothing dramatic, just tiny affirmations like, "You are brave," or "The world needs your heart." Marcus dropped by every evening, though less with a tool belt and more often with 2 cups of coffee or a loaf of warm banana bread from the bakery near his apartment. He and Rose had developed a rhythm that hovered somewhere between friendship and something heavier, though neither of them said it out loud. The silence wasn't avoidance. It was respect for the weight of what they were building and for how fragile good things can feel before they're named. But quiet never lasts forever. On a Tuesday evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the porch in golden streaks, Marcus pulled into the driveway and noticed an unfamiliar car parked near the curb. Silver SUV, spotless, with a dealership tag still hanging from the rearview mirror. Something about it made the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. He climbed the porch steps just as Rose opened the front door, her smile faint, eyes tight. "Hey," she said, voice lower than usual, "we've got company." Before Marcus could answer, a tall man appeared behind her in the hallway. Clean, shaven, pressed button-up, confidence dripping from every movement. "You must be Marcus," the man said, extending a hand. "I'm Jason, Eli's father." Marcus didn't move right away. Then, out of habit more than invitation, he shook the man's hand. Firm grip, calculated smile. Rose stepped slightly between them. "He's just visiting. He's in town for work. I thought it'd be nice to see my son," Jason added, glancing toward the living room. "And his new friend." Marcus said nothing. He didn't need to. Jason was already looking through him, not at him. The kind of look Marcus knew too well. The unspoken equation. Black man, working hands, standing in a white woman's house with her child nearby. Jason didn't need to say a thing, his eyebrows did the math for him. "I'm just here to fix the porch light," Marcus finally said, voice even. "It's been flickering." Rose shot him a look grateful and guilty all at once. Jason smirked. "Still doing the handy stuff, huh?" Marcus stepped past him slowly. "Still leaving it broken, huh?" The air thickened. Rose cleared her throat. "Eli's in the backyard if you want to say hi," she told Jason. As he walked away, Marcus turned to her. "You didn't tell me he was coming." "I didn't know," she whispered. "He texted out of nowhere. He's not staying long." Marcus nodded. But something had shifted. The lightness they had built on brushstroke at a time felt like it was holding its breath. Later, after Jason left with nothing more than a half-hearted hug and a promise to call more often, Marcus stood with Rose on the porch, watching the last of the sunlight disappear. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah, just tired." "He always like that?" "Worse, before, but he plays nice when he wants to prove something." Marcus leaned against the railing. He wasn't here for Eli. Number. He was here to measure me. To measure you. And I don't care about his tape measure. She reached for Marcus's hand, held it tightly. I care about what we're building. Then let's keep building, he said. But even as the words left his mouth, something inside him ached, because history has a way of sneaking through the cracks. That ache deepened 2 days later when Marcus received a phone call from a former client. Just wanted to let you know, Marcus, we're going with someone else for the new build. Nothing personal, just optics. He knew what that meant. He always knew. But hearing it never dulled the sting. That night he didn't go to Rose's, to the sing. Instead, he sat in his apartment staring at his work gloves. They used to mean purpose. Now, somehow, they felt like evidence. His phone buzzed twice. Rose, you okay? And then, Eli keeps asking if you're coming. He typed and erased a dozen replies before finally settling on, not tonight, just tired. A lie wrapped in truth. The next evening, Rose showed up at his door. No text, no call. Just her, standing in the hallway with a Tupperware of lasagna and eyes full of quiet fire. You don't get to vanish, she said, stepping past him. Not when you're the one who taught us how to stay. He didn't argue. Just let her in. Let her words settle. They ate in silence, the kind that says more than comfort ever could. When dinner was done, Rose leaned back, folded her hands. I know he got in your head. He didn't have to. The world does it for him. Then push back. It's not that simple. No, it's not. But it's still right. Marcus stood, walked to the window. I've worked my whole life to be seen as something steady, dependable, clean, and still, one man shows up and I become the question mark again. Not to me, she said. Not to Eli. He turned slowly. And when the questions get louder, then we answer louder. They stood, eye to eye, past hesitation now. I need you to know, he said, voice low. I'm not here for a project. I'm not here to prove anything. Good, she replied, because I'm not here to be rescued. Just chosen. Marcus stepped closer. Then I choose you, mess and all. She smiled. That's the only kind of choice that matters. And as the night wrapped around them like a soft quilt, neither of them reached for certainty. They reached for each other, and that, for now, was enough. The following Saturday brought a crispness to the air that signaled autumn was finally settling into Charlotte. Leaves scattered along the sidewalks like warm-colored confetti, and the sun hung lower in the sky, casting long shadows across Marcus's tool shed as he packed up a toolbox he hadn't touched in days. Rose had asked if he wanted to go to the community market with her and Eli that morning. Fresh cider, local artists, some music, but he'd said no. He needed time, space, or so he thought. But now, standing alone with his tools too polished and his apartment too quiet, Marcus wasn't so sure what he needed anymore. Just before noon, his phone buzzed. A single message from Rose. There's a man playing blues guitar and Eli just tipped him with a cookie. Wish you were here. He stared at the words, read them twice, then grabbed his jacket and keys. By the time Marcus reached the market, the main crowd had begun to thin. He scanned the rows of stalls, pumpkins, candles, homemade jam sand, finally spotted Rose near a booth with hand-stitched aprons. She looked up, smiled the way she always did when surprised but not shocked. I was starting to think you'd miss cider season entirely, she said as he approached. I couldn't let Eli corner all the cookie musicians, he replied, his tone lighter than he felt. He's over by the hay bales, trading robot trivia with a goat. Marcus laughed. Classic Eli. Ugh. They walked together without a destination, fingers brushing but never fully laced. It wasn't distance, it was recognition that this moment, like everything they were building, needed permission. At the caramel apple stand, Marcus bought two, handed one to her. Didn't picture myself here a year ago, he said. You mean walking around a craft fair with sticky apples and a preschooler's goat story on repeat? Exactly that. She bit into the apple, shrugged. Life reroutes you. Sometimes it's messy. Sometimes it leads to cider and cinnamon. And sometimes, he said, glancing sideways, it leads to you. Later that afternoon, they drove back to Rose's house in near silence, the radio playing soft folk songs. Eli had fallen asleep in the back seat, head resting against the car door, his hands still covered in marker drawings. Rose reached over, lowered the volume, then spoke in a voice almost too gentle for the weight it carried. Jason called again. Marcus kept his eyes on the road. Yeah? He wants to take Eli for Thanksgiving. Says it's his year. Marcus's jaw tightened slightly, not from jealousy but concern. You okay with that? No, she said honestly. But I don't want to be the reason Eli misses something important, and I don't want to fight out of fear. He doesn't get to undo what you've built. He won't, she said, but I'd feel better knowing you're nearby. They pulled into the driveway, the sky now a soft gradient of dusk. Marcus helped carry Eli inside, the boy barely stirring as he was tucked into bed. Downstairs, Rose lit a candle on the coffee table and poured 2 mugs of tea. They sat in quiet until Marcus finally asked, "You ever worry this thing with Mayus might be harder than it's worth?" Rose didn't flinch. "Every day." "And you're still here?" "Every day," she repeated. "You think I don't see the looks when we walk through the market? The way some people hold their stares just a second too long? I see them," he said. "But I see you more." Rose leaned forward, elbows on knees, mug between her hands. "I need you to promise me something. Anything. If it ever gets too heavy, you tell me. Don't carry it alone. Don't disappear." Marcus nodded, reached out, placed his hand over hers. "Only if you promise the same." She held his gaze. "Deal." As the night deepened, they talked about simple things, the upcoming garage art class for the neighborhood kids, Eli's newfound obsession with astronomy, Marcus's idea to start a small side business teaching basic repairs to teens. The future didn't feel far away anymore. It felt within reach, tangible, earned. The next morning brought a shift. Marcus arrived at the house to find Rose pacing the porch, her phone pressed to her ear and her face flushed with frustration. She ended the call quickly, then turned to him. "That was Jason. He wants to pick Eli up early next week, Monday. That's not Thanksgiving. He says they're flying to Arizona. Some family gathering. He already booked the flight." Marcus took a breath. "Can he do that?" "Technically, yes. The custody agreement gives him alternating holidays. And you're okay with it?" "I'm not," she said. "But I'm tired of courtrooms and letters from lawyers. I just want peace for a while." Marcus studied her face. "What do you want me to do?" "Just be here when I need you," she said, "even if I don't know how to ask." That evening, as Marcus walked back to his truck, he saw the porch light flicker again, the same one he'd fixed months ago when they first met. He paused, then smiled. Maybe it wasn't broken. Maybe it just needed another look. Like so many things in life, it didn't have to be perfect, it just had to be cared for. And Marcus Carter, steady-handed, clear-eyed, knew that care wasn't always loud. Sometimes it showed up in the quiet moments, in the hand held a second longer, in the decision to stay one more night, in the choice to keep building even when the world asked if it was worth it. Monday morning arrived, cloaked in quiet tension. The air felt heavier, as if even the sky knew something important was being taken away. Rose moved through the house like someone holding glass, deliberate, careful, every motion designed to avoid a crack. Eli sat at the kitchen table, swinging his legs, a backpack slung loosely over one shoulder. He didn't ask questions, didn't protest, just scribbled a final drawing of a robot with wings and placed it inside his folder. "You sure he's ready for this?" Marcus asked gently as he leaned against the counter, sipping black coffee that had gone lukewarm. Rose nodded, but the gesture lacked conviction. "He's excited. He says he wants to see the desert, cactus and cowboy hats. But I don't trust Jason to listen when Eli needs quiet, or gentleness, or space. Then say that. I have, and I will again, but for now, I need to choose peace." Jason arrived precisely on time, the silver SUV gleaming in the driveway like a statement. He stepped out wearing aviator sunglasses and a pressed shirt, his smile wide but empty. "Morning," he said flatly. Rose stood on the porch, Eli beside her, holding a small suitcase and a larger piece of folded construction paper. "Ready, kiddo?" Jason asked. Eli looked up at Rose first. She knelt down, hugged him close. "Be kind, be brave, and if you ever feel small, remember whose child you are." He nodded solemnly, then turned to Marcus. "Want you to have this," he said, handing over the folded paper. Marcus unfolded it slowly. Inside was a new drawing, a robot holding hands with a taller robot in a blue shirt. "That's you," Eli explained. "And me. We're flying." Marcus blinked against something sharp in his throat. "I'll keep it safe," he said. "Promise." After Jason and Eli drove off, Rose and Marcus stood silently in the driveway, the tail lights shrinking into the distance. "I hate this part," she whispered. "The waiting?" he asked. "The pretending it doesn't feel like loss." "He'll come back," Marcus said. "Whole, loved, because you gave him the tools." She didn't answer, just reached for Marcus's hand and squeezed it tight. That afternoon the house echoed. The sound of Eli's footsteps, his laughter, his habit of humming while brushing his teeth all absent. Rose tried to distract herself by cleaning, organizing art supplies, watering plants that didn't need watering. Marcus stayed nearby, fixing a crooked cabinet door, re-leveling the porch step, offering silence not as an escape but as companionship. At one point, Rose stopped in the middle of the hallway and looked at him with wet eyes. "I don't know how to be still when he's gone." Marcus set his tools down. "Then don't be still. Be whatever you need to be." The week passed in slow inches. Rose received 2 texts from Jason, both vague, both impersonal. Flight landed. Eli's fine. No pictures. No calls. On Thursday night, Marcus arrived with a box of takeout and a suggestion. "Let's paint," he said. "The big wall in the studio. Let's make something messy." Rose hesitated. "I don't think I can focus." "That's the point. Don't focus. Just move." They laid out brushes, pulled down old cans of paint, and started splashing color across the wall without form or intention. Streaks of teal and burnt orange, wide strokes of red, handprints in navy blue, no plan, just motion. Halfway through, Rose laughed real and loud. "I haven't done this since college," she said, wiping paint from her cheek. "I forgot how freeing it feels to not know what comes next." "I live there," Marcus said, "in the not knowing." She turned to him, her face flushed with joy and exhaustion. "Thank you," she said, "for giving me space to unravel a little." "I'm not here to hold you together, Rose," he replied. "I'm just here to stay while you figure it out." "Oh." By Sunday, the silence in the house had softened. It wasn't gone, but it didn't feel hostile. It felt lived in, like something earned. That morning, Marcus made pancakes, burned the first batch, got the second right. Rose sat at the table in a sweatshirt and messy bun, her feet tucked under her. "I've been thinking about the studio," she said, "about what it could be, long term. Tell me, a place for kids like Eli, not just art, but a space where they're seen, heard, where they can show up as themselves." Marcus nodded. "You're thinking bigger. I want to give him a world that doesn't ask him to shrink to fit. Then let's build it." The sound of her phone vibrating pulled them both from the conversation. She picked it up, read the screen, then froze. "It's Jason." Marcus waited. She answered. "Hey," she said softly. A pause. "Wait, what do you mean?" Another pause. "You said Thursday. That's 3 days early." Her free hand clenched into a fist. "You can't just know, Jason. You need to understand." She stopped, closed her eyes, breathed deep. "Put him on, please." Another pause. Then her face broke into a smile that reached all the way to her tired eyes. "Hi, baby," she said. "You're coming home? Really? Okay. I'll be there. I love you." She hung up and looked at Marcus. His great-uncle got sick. Jason's cutting the trip short. He's bringing Eli home tonight. "Hi." Marcus stood, already reaching for his jacket. "I'll come with you." "You don't have to." "I want to." That evening, as they stood again in the driveway, the silver SUV pulled in slower than before. Jason stepped out, less smug this time, maybe even tired. Eli came bounding out, backpack bouncing, arms wide. Rose scooped him up, held him like breath restored. Then Eli ran straight to Marcus and said, "Did you hang my robot picture?" Marcus knelt. "It's right on the fridge, where important things go." Jason gave a half wave, then got in his car and drove off without a word. Rose, still holding Eli's hand, looked at Marcus. "He's home." "Yeah," Marcus said, "and so are you." And just like that, the silence that had weighed on the house all week lifted, not with a shout, but with a small boy's return, and the quiet knowledge that some families are built not declared. And that love, real love, never leaves without a plan to come back. Tuesday morning arrived with a kind of stillness that didn't feel empty, it felt earned. Rose stirred awake to the muffled sound of Eli humming in the kitchen, the faint scrape of a chair against tile, and the unmistakable clink of cereal being poured with more enthusiasm than aim. She smiled into her pillow before rising, pulling a sweater over her shoulders and walking barefoot down the hall. In the kitchen, Marcus was already there, leaning against the counter with a cup of coffee, eyes following Eli like someone watching a live-action cartoon. "He's back to full energy," Marcus said, offering her a warm glance. "He poured the entire box this time. I think we lost half the cornflakes to the floor." Rose stepped over a few rogue flakes and tousled Eli's hair as she passed. "It's not a proper Tuesday without a mess." They moved around the kitchen like they'd done it for years, quiet, efficient, overlapping without collision. Marcus fixed the leaky faucet while Rose packed Eli's lunch, and the boy chattered on about what he planned to build in art class. "It's going to have wings, but also wheels, so it can fly and roll. Like a space truck," he explained. Marcus grinned. "Sounds unstoppable." "Like Mom," Eli replied without hesitation, and Rose blinked hard, catching her breath before planting a kiss on her son's forehead. After they dropped Eli off at school, the car ride back to the house was comfortable, filled with shared silence and the occasional comment about a new bakery opening down the street. When they pulled into the driveway, Rose didn't get out right away. She turned to Marcus, her expression thoughtful. "There's something I've been thinking about," she said. "What if we did this for real? Made the studio into something bigger, got permits, built a curriculum, reached out to the city, made it an actual nonprofit." Marcus looked at her, quiet for a moment, then said, "I'm in." She blinked. "Just like that?" "Rose," he said, his tone steady. "You've been giving kids color and shape for years. I've been patching things together just to keep moving. What if this is our thing? What if this is what we've been building toward?" The rest of the day unfolded like something just slightly magical. They mapped out ideas at the kitchen table, Marcus sketching rough outlines on a napkin while Rose scribbled grant ideas and contact names into a notebook. They brainstormed a name. The painted home and both laughed when it landed, not because it was flashy, but because it felt right, rooted, honest. Over dinner, they told Eli the plan. "So, like other kids can come and paint too?" he asked, eyes wide. "Exactly," Rose said. "And Mr. Marcus is going to teach kids how to fix things, real things." "Even toilets?" "Especially toilets," Marcus replied, and Eli laughed until he nearly choked on his spaghetti. That night, after the dishes were washed and Eli had fallen asleep with a flashlight under his blanket, Marcus and Rose stood in the garage, staring at the mural wall. The streaks from last week's chaos had dried into something unexpectedly beautiful, abstract, textured, honest. "We're doing this," she said quietly. "We are." He stepped closer. "But I need to tell you something first." She turned, eyes steady on him. "I've been offered a contract, out of state, construction consulting in Atlanta. Good money, more than I've ever made." The words hung in the air between them, sharp and sudden. Rose's shoulders tightened slightly. "Are you taking it?" "I told them no," he said simply. "But I wanted you to know, because choosing this isn't about lack of options. It's about believing this matters more." She exhaled, a small tremble of relief and reverence. "Thank you," she whispered, "for staying." "I'm not just staying," he said. "I'm investing." The next few weeks were filled with motion. They met with city officials, filed paperwork, converted part of the garage into a more formal workspace. Marcus built shelves for supplies. Rose created a wall-sized calendar with upcoming workshops. Eli helped by sorting paintbrushes into jars and making welcome signs with crayons and stickers. Word spread quickly. Parents began stopping by, asking questions. A retired teacher volunteered to help on Thursdays. A teenager from the neighborhood offered to teach a digital design class. The space buzzed with new energy, alive with possibility. But not everyone was pleased. One afternoon, Marcus returned from a supply run to find a flyer taped to their mailbox. No name, no group, just a printed message in bold black letters. "You can't change what people see." He stared at it for a long time, then folded it slowly and slipped it into his back pocket. Inside, Rose was helping Eli clean up glitter from an exploded art project. She looked up, saw his face, and asked, "What happened?" He didn't answer right away. Then, quietly, "Nothing that'll stop us." She crossed the room, took his hand and said, "We're not fixing the world, Marcus, but we're planting something here." and roots don't care who disapproves." He nodded, kissed the top of her head and whispered, "Then let's keep planting." That night, after Eli had gone to bed, they sat together on the back porch wrapped in a shared blanket, the porch light flickering gently above them. Rose leaned against him, her voice soft. "You think people like us people with scars, with baggage yet to have forever?" Marcus thought for a moment. "I don't know about forever," he said. "But I know about every day we choose to stay. That feels like something better." And in the quiet, under a North Carolina sky that held both stars and the echoes of long-forgotten pain, they stayed. Not because it was easy, but because staying was its own kind of revolution. The morning of the grand opening of the painted home arrived beneath a silver sky that threatened rain, but held back like it too, was curious to see how the day would unfold. Marcus stood in front of the garage, now transformed into a studio space glowing with soft track lighting and colorful shelves lined with brushes, paper, hammers, screwdrivers, bolts, and bins of craft supplies. A folding table out front offered coffee, donuts, and a stack of flyers that read, "Where every hand builds and every heart belongs." Inside, Rose was taping a last-minute sign that read, "Welcome builders of all kinds," above the doorway. She stepped back, squinted at it, then smiled to herself. "Looks just crooked enough to be real," she said, turning to Marcus. He grinned. "Perfection's overrated." And Eli darted past them, wearing his official assistant badge hand, drawn and laminated with packing tape shouting something about robot name tags and glitter glue. Rose chuckled. "We might need to invent a cleanup badge." "That's your department," Marcus replied. "I'm just here to hang shelves and hand out cookies." But both of them knew this was more than shelves and snacks. This was the culmination of late nights, hard conversations, whispered doubts, and louder promises. It was the quiet revolution they'd been building from the inside out. The first visitors arrived just after 10, a mother with 2 shy daughters who clung to her legs until Marcus knelt down and offered them each a brush and a wide smile. "Pick any color you want," he said. The walls waiting. From there, the space began to fill. More families, a few curious teenagers, a grandfather who used to be a woodshop teacher and offered to run a carving class if they could find the right tools. Even a city councilwoman stopped by, sipping coffee and nodding thoughtfully as Rose explained their mission. "We want a place where every kid, no matter where they come from or what they carry, can see themselves in what they make," Rose said. "And we want them to make a mess, because that's where the best stories start." Marcus watched her speak, pride swelling in his chest, not just because of what they'd built, but because of how she stood in it, clear, grounded, unapologetically herself. There had been a time when her voice trembled in public, when she doubted her place. Not today. Today, she was the center of gravity. As the morning melted into afternoon, laughter echoed from every corner. Eli led a tour through the gallery of kid-painted canvases hung with clothespins. A girl named Yara, maybe 9 years old, shyly asked if she could show people how to fold paper stars. Marcus set her up at a corner table with origami paper and a hand-drawn sign. Yara's Star Station. Within 20 minutes, 4 other kids had joined her. It was just after 1 when Marcus stepped outside for air and spotted a figure leaning against a parked car across the street. Jason. He hadn't said a word since Thanksgiving, hadn't even sent a message to check in on Eli. But now, here he was, arms crossed, sunglasses shielding his eyes, jaw tight. Marcus didn't walk toward him. He just stood still, watching. Eventually, Jason crossed the street and stopped a few feet away. "Busy little operation," he said, voice flat. "It's not little," Marcus replied calmly. "And it's not yours to judge." Jason shrugged. "Just checking in, making sure things don't get confusing for Eli." "Eli's not confused. He knows who shows up." Jason's mouth twitched, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "You think this is going to last? These projects? These paint dreams?" "I don't think," Marcus said. "I build. That's what I do." Jason scoffed. "You're not his dad." "No," Marcus said. "But I'm here, and that counts for something." He turned and walked back inside before Jason could reply. Rose met him at the door. "You okay?" she asked. He was watching. Marcus nodded. "Yeah, I'm okay." He didn't mention the conversation, didn't need to. She saw it in his shoulders. "You handled it," she said. "We handled it," he corrected. By late afternoon, the first workshop was underway. Marcus stood beside a folding workbench, teaching 4 teenagers how to fix a leaky faucet using a demo pipe and a small toolkit. "You don't have to be perfect," he said, adjusting a wrench in a girl's hand. "You just have to pay attention. Most things break from being ignored." Across the room, Rose led an art circle where kids were encouraged to draw something they feared, then paint over it with something they loved. "We don't erase," she told them. "We layer, because all of it what hurt us and what healed us belongs." As the day wound down and the last guests trickled out, Marcus and Rose stood side by side in the now quiet studio. The walls were covered in new artwork. The workbenches were dusted with sawdust and pride. Eli was curled up in a beanbag, fast asleep, holding a paper robot in one hand and a glitter star badge in the other. Rose reached for Marcus's hand. "This was more than I dreamed," she said. "It's only the first day," he replied. "We've got more building to do." "With him?" she asked, glancing toward Eli. "With all of them," Marcus said. "Every kid who walks in here carrying more than they know how to say." The sky outside had deepened to a soft indigo, the porch light casting a gentle halo across the front steps. Marcus turned to Rose. "You ever think maybe we weren't just building this for them?" She smiled, eyes glinting with warmth. "I think we were building it for the parts of us that needed it too." He leaned in, forehead resting lightly against hers. "Then I'm glad we didn't wait for perfect. I'm glad we just started." And in the hum of paint drying and stories beginning, they stood together not as saviors or symbols, but as people who chose every day to stay, to build, to believe. A few weeks after the grand opening, the painted home had begun to pulse with a life of its own. What started as an idea between 2 people and a boy with a crayon had become something more rhythm, a refuge, a real place where color met chaos and both were welcome. Every Tuesday and Friday, the garage filled with laughter, music, the tapping of tools, and the murmur of young voices learning how to hold a brush or tighten a bolt. There was always someone painting, someone building, someone healing. Marcus arrived early most mornings, coffee in one hand and a small notebook in the other where he scribbled new ideas for workshops. Rose would already be inside, usually sitting on the floor with a child who didn't want to talk but had a lot to draw. Eli, now dubbed assistant director, wore a rotating collection of homemade badges and considered himself the final authority on snack choices and paintbrush quality. One crisp Friday afternoon, Marcus finished cleaning up after a plumbing class for teens when he noticed Rose standing by the front window, holding a letter. Her brow was furrowed, her lips set tight. He walked over. "Something wrong?" She held out the envelope. "It's from the city." He opened it slowly, scanning the letter. It was a notice of pending review of their permit due to an anonymous complaint regarding zoning and unauthorized community services in a residential area. Marcus exhaled through his nose. "Jason." Rose didn't have to say it. They both knew. "He's been quiet too long," she said. "I should have expected something." "We'll fight it," Marcus said. "Whatever it takes. They'll ask about funding, about training, about whether we're qualified." Marcus stepped closer. "We are qualified. We show up. Every day. That's more than most. But this could shut us down," she said. "This isn't just about us anymore. We've got 20 kids registered for the winter session." They sat down at the long table where students had painted their names in mismatched fonts. Marcus pulled out his notebook. "Okay, then we prepare." Over the next week, they organized everything: lesson plans, safety certifications, letters from parents, even a testimonial from the local high school principal whose son had found his footing through Marcus's tool class. They built a binder thick with proof that this place mattered. Still, tension hung in the air like a storm cloud waiting to break. The night before the review hearing, Marcus and Rose sat on the back porch, mugs of tea in hand, Eli already asleep inside. "You scared?" Rose asked, staring into the dark. "Not of them," Marcus said. "But yeah, I'm scared we'll lose this. That it'll all be gone because someone couldn't stand to see something working." Rose nodded slowly. "I keep thinking about something my grandmother used to say. If the ground shakes, plant deeper roots." Marcus smiled. "She sounds like someone I'd listen to." "She had opinions on men too," Rose added. "She'd have liked you though. Would have said you were a quiet kind of strong." "Is that a compliment?" "From her? It's a crown." The next morning, they walked into the city office hand in hand. The hearing was short but tense. The committee asked questions. Marcus answered most of them, voice calm but firm. Rose added details, cited names, passed around the binder. A few raised eyebrows, a couple of curt nods. One woman with a tight bun and skeptical tone who asked if they were equipped to handle emotional health in children. "We're not therapists," Marcus said. "We're builders, of space, of safety, of trust, and sometimes that's enough to start healing." When they walked out, the air felt heavy with the weight of things still undecided. Back at the studio, they found a small crowd, waiting parents, students, a few neighbors. Word had gotten out. People brought signs that read, "Save the painted home and let our kids build." Rose's eyes welled up. "I didn't ask them to do this." "They didn't need asking," Marcus said. "They're planting roots, too." The decision came 3 days later. An envelope in the mailbox. Rose tore it open with shaking fingers. Marcus stood beside her, one arm lightly around her waist. "Permit approved. With praise for community engagement," she read aloud. Her voice broke on the last word. "We did it," she whispered. "No," Marcus said. "They did it. We just held the door open." That Friday, they hosted a celebration. Not big, not flashy, just hot cocoa, extra glitter glue, and a playlist curated by Eli. Kids painted new welcome signs. Parents brought homemade cookies, and someone even donated a new workbench. Rose stood in the center of the studio, spinning slowly in a circle to take it all in. "I think we've built more than a program," she said. Marcus, standing at her side, nodded. "We've built a home." As evening settled and families drifted away, Rose looked at Marcus. "What comes next?" He smiled, pulled out his old notebook, now full of dog-eared pages. "Next, we build a second one, different neighborhood, same heart." She laughed, tired and hopeful all at once. "You don't rest, do you?" "Not when I'm building," he said. She leaned into him. "Then let's keep building, together." And in the warmth of paint, streaked walls, worn floors, and hearts that had learned to stay, they held each other, two people who didn't start with a plan, but ended with a purpose. Chat GPT Danoi. Winter settled into Charlotte with soft gray skies and quiet mornings, the kind that made warm mugs feel like miracles and slow conversations like sacred rituals. The painted home adjusted with the season-swapping outdoor painting sessions for cozy indoor crafts, trading popsicles for peppermint cocoa, and replacing folding fans with knit scarves hung neatly on pegs by the door. The garage-turned-studio had never been busier. Each day brought new faces, new hands, new stories. Marcus added heaters and extra lighting. Rose curated a rotating wall of student artwork titled, "This is What I See," letting kids express their world in every shade they could mix. Eli, ever the ambassador, declared himself head of Holiday Cheer and took it upon himself to string mismatched twinkle lights across every possible surface. They blinked unevenly, but Rose insisted it made them more honest. On one chilly Tuesday, a local newspaper sent a reporter. He'd heard about the painted home through a parent whose child had found belonging there after a rough start to middle school. The reporter stayed all day, watching as Marcus taught a group of boys how to patch drywall while Rose helped a girl paint a self-portrait made entirely from geometric shapes. At the end, the reporter asked one question that caught both of them off guard. "If this all ended tomorrow," he said, "what would you hope people remembered?" Rose looked at Marcus first, who gave a slight nod. Then she said, "That love doesn't always arrive in speeches or declarations. Sometimes it shows up in hammers and brushes. Sometimes it looks like staying when leaving would be easier." The article ran 2 days later with the headline, "Building Belonging, the Garage That Became a Heartbeat." Not long after, Rose received an email from the city council. They wanted to formally recognize the painted home at their January meeting. "They're calling it a symbol of community resilience," she said, half laughing, half stunned. "Should we tell them we almost shut it down over a zoning letter?" Marcus grinned. "Let them think it was always solid. We'll know the truth." On the night of the meeting, they sat near the back of the chamber, Eli between them, fidgeting with a tiny robot keychain. When their names were called, Marcus squeezed Rose's hand. They walked together to the podium. The mayor read a short statement about the power of local engagement, the importance of safe spaces for youth, and how the painted home had inspired similar programs in 2 other districts. Rose accepted the framed certificate. Marcus didn't say much, just, looked around the room, caught the eyes of a few parents and kids in the audience, and nodded. When they returned to their seats, Eli whispered, "Does this mean we're famous?" Marcus smiled. "No, buddy. It means we matter." The following weekend, they hosted a winter showcase. Kids performed songs, read poems, displayed sculptures made of scrap wood and wire. One boy who hadn't spoken more than a few words all semester stood in front of 30 people and read a story he wrote about a superhero who couldn't fly but always showed up. When he finished, the applause wasn't loud, it was full. Rose stood off to the side, tears in her eyes, watching a dozen small victories bloom at once. Marcus came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist. "This," she whispered, "is everything." "And it's just the beginning," he replied. Later that night, after the last chair was stacked, and Eli had gone to bed with a cupcake in each hand and frosting on his nose, Marcus and Rose sat by the fireplace. The heat flickered, casting soft light across their tired faces. "You ever think about the day we met?" she asked, resting her head on his shoulder. "Every time I see that porch light flicker," he said, "I thought you were just another job. And I thought you were just fixing a light. Turns out we were both wrong." She smiled. "I think we were both exactly right. We just didn't know it yet." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out something small, wrapped in tissue. "I found this at the hardware store," he said. She unwrapped it, a tiny copper charm shaped like a house, etched with the words, "Built to last." Her breath caught. "Marcus, it's not a proposal," he said quickly. "Not yet. Just a reminder that what we've made here is, this place, it's not temporary." She turned toward him, cupped his cheek in her hand. "Whatever comes next," she whispered, "we face it together." "Together," he echoed. As the fire burned low and the sky outside hinted at snow, the house felt still but not silent. It pulsed with memories of a boy with robot drawings, a woman who believed in second chances, a man who stayed. And somewhere in the quiet, between a cracked wall and a painted mural, between a porch light that wouldn't quit and a name scribbled in crayon, love had settled in, not as a guest, but as foundation. Not as a spark, but as shelter. And in that, they had built something unshakable, something home. The story of Marcus, Rose, and the painted home reminds us that love and healing aren't always loud or dramatic. They often arrive quietly, through small acts of consistency, kindness, and the courage to stay. It teaches us that building a meaningful life doesn't require perfection, wealth, or grand gestures, but rather the willingness to show up day after day, especially when it's hard. True belonging is not something we find, it's something we create, together, brick by brick, with open hearts and open hands. And sometimes, the greatest act of love is choosing to stay when walking away would be easier.